Hello again, my monster cuties. Hoo ha ha ha. Alright, so I think this is part 5 of this snacking cutie painting that we're going to do. And today we're going to be working more on color. We're going to create some custom brushes. And right now I've got the file open and you see it's all blank because I turned off the visibility of all the layers to save on space. So let's turn on the background and let's turn on the foreground and see what we've got here. All right, so I think I want to put in some of the dirt and the twigs and all that kind of broken stuff in the ground stuff here. We're still concentrating on the background. I think I'm gonna put in some of the dirt and the gribble in the foreground in the ground here, and then I'll start working on the cutie, the big guy, and then maybe a little bit of the little guy himself. Um, I don't know. I'm a little concerned that this is too brown and this is too orange and they're sort of blending into each other, but I'll tweak that later. But first, let's do oh, I did this mist layer here. Not sure if I'm going to keep that or not. I'll leave it on right now. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse all of these layers into one. So the more layers you create in Photoshop, the bigger your file is going to be, and the more memory it takes, and the harder it is, the more difficult it is going to be to paint, because as you swipe your mouse across the screen, it's going to kind of chunk along. So we are going to start collapsing some layers. And since I like what's going on here, in general, this is what we had originally. This was our first color overlay, and this is kind of what we painted in. I'm going to collapse all of this background stuff. Now, normally I like to keep everything I do on separate layers just to go back because I'm unconfident in what I do sometimes, but screw that. So the easiest way to collapse a bunch of layers is to hold the Apple key and hit E, and that collapses all of that stuff. And for a PC, I think it's Control and E, and that collapses all that stuff. So this is all one layer now, so turn that off, turn that on. And I'm not sure about the mist, so I kept that on its separate layer. And I'm going to start working on, in this section down here, the dirt. But to do that, I'm going to create a new brush because I'm a lazy bastard. So I'm going to open up a new file and I'm going to create a fairly big brush. I'm going to go 300 by 300 because my composition is at print resolution. I think it's at 300 dpi, and I want the brush big enough so that it looks good, and I want the color mode to be grayscale. I don't know why it was in bitmap. And so there is my background, and I'm going to hit the D key, and that puts my foreground color as black. And I'm going to grab a brush here, the chalk brush, and what I'm going to do is paint a basic kind of dirty pattern here. Now when you're creating your own brushes, you want to create them in black and white. Don't use any color values because it's gonna be transformed into black and white anyway when you turn it into a brush. I think. I don't actually know. I haven't actually created a brush using color before. I always convert everything to black and white. So I'm painting this pattern by hand. You can create brushes from photo textures, which a lot of people do. I'm just doing this by hand because I don't want to get too lazy with my stamps just yet. But that will probably occur. I'll probably use some photo textures eventually when it comes to laying in some of the fine detail. But for now, in these build-up phases, I'll just do something nice and gritty, simple here. All right, so what you can do now is select the area that you want to turn into the brush, and I want that to be my brush. And go over to your edit menu, define brush preset, and then create some more square version of that. And let's call this... No, no, no. I actually want it to be smushed. So I'm going to select the entire area. And we'll see, we'll get a different profile when I define my brush preset. I lied. Never mind. Alright, so we'll call this twigs. Hit OK. And check it out. So we'll go to our brushes and we'll see that we've got twigs right down here. Now default, this is what it looks like. Not at all what I want. And let me make it a little bit smaller. Not at all what I want. This is horrible. This is exactly the opposite of what I'm looking for. So we have to go and change our presets. So let's go to tip shape, spacing. Let's space it out a little bit. Let's not mess with that for right now. Let's keep that. Shape dynamics, jitter size, pen pressure. Scattering, that's the one I want. Both axes is pen pressure. Let's keep it. No, let's not do that. Texture. So this is, you can add texture to your brushes. I'm going to add this that crackling texture. No, 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 no. No, I don't like any of these, so we won't add a texture to that. You can add another brush profile to it if you'd like. That might work. Shape dynamics. There are a whole bunch of different things you can do to play with. Other dynamics. I want the pen pressure to control the opacity jitter. Size jitter, scattering. I'm going to turn the scattering down a little bit. Shape dynamics, size jitter, turn that down just a slight bit. So now it kind of has a leafy pattern here. Angle, roundness. Oh, I like that. So there are all these different types of options you can play with to mess around. That kind of gives me what I'm looking for. I think the that's a little big. The scattering is too big, I think. Nope, nope, I like that. Never mind. Size jitter. Bring that back. And opacity jitter, will turn that up a little bit. There we go. That's some nice crap going on in there. All right, so we've got our brush. Let us save this. We'll save it. Twigs. Setup. And let's delete this other brush that we created. So to delete it, hit Option or Alt and click on that brush that you want to get rid of. All right, so we've created our new Gribble brush, twig brush. Let's create a new layer. Let's turn off the foreground cuties and let's put our stage in focus. Grab that color and let's start painting in some of this stuff. We'll call this twigs. Oops. Twigs. Alright, now you notice it has a fairly uniform pattern layout to it. That's okay. I just want something that I can do quickly. Lay that in quick, nice and quick. And I'm going to put different layers upon layers and upon layers and upon layers and stuff. So this is a nice way, these custom brushes are a nice way to build up background textures. You could easily see this as something that you would create for like a website background or something like that. There's some filters that we can play with, but for right now we're just gonna just play with our new brush and dance around here a little bit. Put in some of this dark shadowing here. More twigs. It's kind of a uniform pattern. I guess I could break it up with some more hand painting, um, but for right now, I think I like just dusting some of the stuff in here, um, not making too big a deal of where the stuff lies. As I get close to these shapes here, I'm swatching some of the darker hues from them to sort of indicate that the light is bouncing off of that. Um, so I have more tones to play around with, because you know, in the woods everything sort of starts to pick up every other tone around it. So I like some of this, what's going on here. Let's see where the cuties are, and let's dump in some of these shadows so that they look like they're actually standing instead of floating. And we'll tighten some of this stuff up, I guess, later. We won't do it right now. But yeah, you don't want to go too overboard with the texture brushes, but they do help. They do get you to a lot of places that you might not have been able to get otherwise. Um, so they're fun to play around with. There are a lot of free brushes online that you can find around, but it's fun to create your own. You know, mess around with some of the presets, see what they can do for you, see where they get you. So already that looks a little bit more like a clearing canopy kind of. Um, we're getting some more depth out of this background plate. It's not bad. Not great, but not bad. I'm tempted to go in and do lots of texturing bits in here, but I don't want to. Alright, I'm gonna save this. Another thing you can play with as you're painting in layers is the layer settings here. So right now I've got the twigs set to normal, and that's what they look like. I'm gonna turn off these guys. If you want, you can change it to screen. That gives it a different character. Color dodge, that brightens it up. Multiply is one that I use a lot. Color burn, ooh, that looks kind of swampy and gross. Overlay, a little bit more subtle. This looks like dirty water instead of twigs and stuff. This also looks like dirty water with hard light. So there are all these different layer settings that these modes that you can play with when you're painting with layers, and these are helpful when you're adding small details. So let's say I wanted to do like a lot of highlights on this tree here, and I didn't want to paint it on the background just in case I screwed up. So I could take a brush like maybe this guy here, and well, let's grab a bright one here, create, and just paint along here. And then I can change this mode to something like color dodge, or maybe screen, or maybe overlay, or a soft light. And then I get different lighting effects with that, and then I can tone it down and then zoom out so that it's a really subtle subtle kind of texture that I'm painting in here. So you can do that with all sorts of different texture brushes or textured photos, and alter them and stuff like that, and paint in some of these details, and then change their layer mode. And then to get more subtle, you can dial down the opacity. So it's a subtle difference between that and that, but sometimes it makes all the difference. So we will play with that later as we get more detailed. Right now I'm concentrating on painting what I see, painting what I want to see, and doing some of these detail passes by hand. But later we'll go in and we'll add in some colors and bump this up a little bit, because I think this background's looking okay, but it's not perfect. But I think I've been dorking around with it too long, so I'm gonna concentrate on the foreground. Go to the foreground. So this is our color layer. We're gonna call this color, and it kind of gives us a general direction to start with the big guy. We've got some oranges and browns and pinks and a little bit of greens in here. I think I'm gonna add some more of those greens going along around here. I really like this squiddy monster on top. He's got all sorts of neat, fun colors. So we're gonna create a new layer, and we're gonna call this overpaint, sort of like what we did with the background. And you'll notice one thing: if I grab my handy dandy spatter brush, which is my brush of choice, and I grab this tone and I start painting, I go out of the lines. I don't want to do that. So there are a couple options. I could turn on a transparency mask, a layer mask on this layer, but that takes up a lot of memory. So what I'm going to do is going to right click the cover layer. Oops. No, I'm not. I'm going to hit Apple on a Mac, or Control on a PC, I think, and hit the thumbnail, and that gives me the marching ants. So now when I paint, I'm restricted by the marching ants. And a neat little trick: if I want to hide the marching ants, I'm going to hit Apple H or Control H on a PC keyboard, and boom, the marching ants are gone. So now I can go in and paint without having to fear painting outside the lines. And I'm going to start with the face, because the face gives me all the character of my character. All the character of my character. That's a double negative. Durr. And I'm just going to start defining these creases a little bit more. Because I think they're cute. Right now they kind of look very saturated. I'm going to try to tone them down with, let's see, let's cool them off a little bit with some gray here. So whenever we color a grayscale sketch with the color mode, it tends to give it a chromed feel, because the shadows and the highlights are all the same color hue, which gives it a very metallic feel. So our job right now with the overpaint is to get rid of some of that homogeneous tone by painting in other colors, like using a gray to cool off the shadows, or using some light greens and yellows and browns and stuff to sort of cool off these shadows, give them more contrasting tones, because shadows don't work that way, and highlights don't work that way. There's all sorts of weird colors that go around on the skin. I like this shade here. So I do a combination of swatching from the composition with the eyedrop tool, and a lot of grabbing the color picker. And there's no real rhyme or reason. It's just when I feel like I want a color, I will grab it somehow. I also hit the X key quite a bit, and that changes the active color from it changes the foreground, and it swaps the foreground and background colors down here to the left, down there. Also, I no rhyme or reason for that. Just sometimes I want one color, sometimes I want the other color, and it just makes it easier if I have two already loaded in to swap back and forth. So these are just little keyboard shortcuts that I use in my everyday workflow, and now you can use them too. Yeah, itchy nose, itchy nose. Oh heck. Oh heck. Let's grab some brune. I don't do noses on my cuties, but I think this guy is really clamoring for a nose, so let's create some kind of nose shape here. He's got a big, flat, ugly, stupid looking nose. And sometimes I build shapes that naturally occur, and sometimes I build shapes with drawing an outline and then softening that outline with various brushes. I rarely use the blur tool. I know there are a lot of painters out there digital painters who use the blur tool or the blend tool, and that's I think it's this guy, the smudge tool, the blur tool. I rarely use those because well, one, it's slow. Like I'll blur a section and it'll take a while for the computer to catch up. But two, I like the idea of blending things by hand. Um, it's weird to talk about painting when you're using pixels and ones and zeros, but you really do get the sense when you're blending things with brushes and not the blending tool. You do get a small sense of an underpainting effect. Like you can see some of these underlying strokes that are going on in there. So I prefer to use color and brush strokes to blend in to blend portions of the composition. Now that may change, but for now that's what I rely on when I'm painting things in le Photoshop. He's got some kind of smirky thing going on here. I am a cute toady monster. Cha 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 cha. Those don't look like nostrils, they kind of look like dent marks. Now we got some nostril action. So I was planning on trying to finish this week, but I think I'm only gonna be able to manage getting two sessions. Yesterday I didn't manage to get a session in because I was dead tired. So that put me a day behind. But I mean, there's no need to rush. Well, I guess there is sort of a need to rush. I want to finish this before the mid-January, when the deadline for Spectrum is. Not that I think I'll get in, but I want to at least make an effort to show stuff. So, but I don't know. This might take longer than I expect. you know the old saying goes, artists can, the piece is never finished. I do think there are points in a piece where it is closer to being uh, done. And I have seen pieces that are overworked. So there may come a time when I'm working on this where I just have to say, all right, if I look at this any longer, it's gonna start looking like barf, and I don't want barf. But for now, I am not at that point where I feel like I'm overworking it. If anything, I feel like I'm underworking it. That's one of the things that working that being in school can help you with, peer review. Sometimes it takes someone on the outside to tell you, hey, you need to stop. Or, hey, the direction you're going is completely wrong for the piece. So, that sometimes it helps to have an outside voice. Or if you are critical of your work, you can manage to do that on your own. Like, I know very few artists who are satisfied with everything they do. They tend to be their own worst critic. Um, but it also takes a mature artist to recognize their personal flaws in their work. Um, there are things that I know that I really don't like about my my work, and one of them is my digital painting. I don't think I'm strong enough, which is half the reason why I'm doing this stuff, is to sort of develop better painting skills just by doing it. Is that a screw up? No, that's not. Okay. Don't forget to save. I also try not to zoom in too much like I am right now. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, I try not to zoom in too terribly much at this stage because I don't want to get too bogged down in detailing. Um, but every once in a while I'll hop in to just to punch in some stuff that I think I can do with a little bit more a finer detail on the brush. I'm gonna round this out a little bit because I don't like the butt look. Like he's got a butt look on his head. No ass crack on the cuties. At least not in their head. Ass crack in their butt, but not on their head. Alright, this section, you see how this section is really white and bright here? That's what I'm talking about when you just overlay some color. So this is just set to color mode. This is what it looked like originally, black and white, or in grayscale. So I'm gonna tone that down in the overpainting because I don't want that section to be that bright. Not just yet. I'm gonna brighten it up later, but I want to do it more intelligently and not just by default. Some of this purple around here. Now sometimes I'll add what's known as a rim light to sort of break a piece out from the background. So you'll notice how this tentacle tone kind of matches the rock here. What a backlight does is it pops, or a rim light, it creates this bright edge around the foreground object. So for instance, if I wanted to do a rim light here, I would grab a light greenish gray and just paint it in right here. That's a rim light. It catches the rim of the object. So if I zoom out now, you get this nice separation between the cutie and the rock. If it was not there, then you get no separation. So I'm probably going to do that later. Right now I'm just building up tones and working on some rounding out figures with color and using that kind of stuff. But rim lighting is something I'm considering because a lot of times when you see a deep forest scene, which is what I'm trying to communicate, you'll have very dark shadows and very contrasty stuff going on. And one of the ways to separate your characters easily out from the background is to use a rim light. So I will probably do some of that when I get further along with this. And I might tone down the whole composition with some shading and lighting. And if I was a better painter, I would be doing that right now as I'm doing this. But right now I'm working in stages because that's all my brain can handle at this point. I think one of my goals is to get better at establishing lighting straight away. And establishing some of those values straight away. Like I think I've kind of done it here. Like this face section here and this face section here are certainly more bright than the rest of the body. So I think I'm okay at it, but I think I can establish stronger lighting from the beginning. You know, this kind of happened by accident. So yet another goal of mine to keep working on as I detail this. As I grab some more water to drink. But as you can tell from the lack of progress and the amount of time I'm spending on this, painting digitally, painting in general takes me personally quite some time. So I don't know if I am going to break this up into like, record like 2 hours, but then condense it into 1 hour or like a half hour or a couple minutes, or I don't know. I don't know how many of you are actually following this minute by minute, or if you just keep this on in the background, or if it might be more beneficial to do a time lapse, but whatever. I'll just keep plugging away. And if I get comments one way or the other, I will make an adjustment. But I'm enjoying this highly detailed cutie. This is a lot more detail than I normally put in the cuties, and I really like the weird stuff that's going on here, like all these weird kind of folds and stuff. It's interesting. I love doing wrinkles. I love doing bulgy shapes, I guess, rounding things out. And I'm not too concerned with symmetry since it's a fantasy creature and they don't always have to be symmetrical, and even our human anatomy isn't 100% symmetrical. There are things that lie in generally the same general area, but nothing is perfectly symmetrical. So I'm just being a lot more loose than well, that's the other thing. I want to try to get looser with my work. I feel like my stuff is too tight. gonna tone down this garish highlight here. There we go. Alright, we're getting some action going here. So let's see. Yeah, we can tell the difference, can't we? We can see what's going on here. I'm gonna work on this little guy here just a little bit. I don't think I'll give him a nose. Well, I think I might give, he needs to breathe, so I'll give him like a small schnoz, but not a terribly big schnoz. Because the smaller the nose, the cuter the cutie. So cute. Cool off this shadow a little bit. Paint in some more of this guy. I kind of like this this blue thing on his ear fin. But I also like this red bit here, so I'm gonna maybe paint some of that in here. Multicolored hot. Hat seems very flat. I think the hat, this guy hat, needs some more wrinkle things going on here. We'll see what this is like here. Maybe some semblance of a highlight here. Some shape. This sock seems too close to the color of the cutie itself, so I will put in some of this gray stuff. Eventually it's gonna be blood soaked, but we will not soak it at this stage of the game. Right now we just want to give it enough distinction from the body. So this line I feel is too harsh for a sock, so I want to try to round it out a little bit. Round that out. Now I've got to bring this a little bit in and not make it so harsh. Round. I made a big sound. Round. I want to maintain that edge. That edge is pretty sweet. So let's take that down a little bit. That kind of looks like a sock. Some sock action. Action! I love that nightlife. I love the boogie. darken that in a little bit, round him out a little bit. I like that. Little subtle stuff. So, might seem like I'm not doing a whole lot, but I'm building on stuff. I'm painting ever so slowly, building out different shapes and rounding things out and toning things back and building up some nice color mood here. So let's back out, see what we've got here. Little bit more stuff going on. So that's what it originally looked like. Here's a little bit more contrast, or not contrast, more color variation. Let's tone this guy back here. These shades are way harsh. And there's no need for that rim over there. That shadow. I think I want to dump in some purple. Some purple in here. So your cool colors are good to your cool colors are the blues, the purples, the grays, cool grays. The cooler colors are good to use to sort of tone your shadows. Like there's a lot of deep brown saturation here, and you know sometimes shadows are more saturated than the actual stuff that's in the light. But sometimes it's too warm. Like this shadow down here is way too warm, and it kind of draws your eye down here. So to cool it off, you can use like a gray or a bluish gray or a purplish gray, your cool colors, and that'll help pop sections out more, or bring things, push things to the background. So color temperature has a lot to do with what your eye is focusing on. And using your cool colors to sort of change the temperature of a section can also direct the eye to a different section. So all right, so this section here is a little bit cooled off. It sort of brings you up here, whereas before it was just right in your face. So everything's cooled off a little bit more. Even in the face, there's a little bit more detail, but it's also a little bit more, a little bit cooler, so it's not hurting your eyes to look at that section there. And we'll put in some more of these deep hues. Right in this bit. Really like this orange tone down here. It's pretty nice. We'll start to tap that in. Tap it in. Tap it in like Bobo Ross. Put in some highlight over the lids, just cause I can. So I think I want to round out this nose a little bit, but I think we're coming up on an hour, so I think I'm gonna stop for now, and I'll come back to next time. I'll keep pushing these sections, building in some more details in here, maybe some more folds and stuff like that. But it's a subtle process and it's building on top of itself. So hope you enjoyed some of this. Hope you're getting something out of it. Oh, and yes, with creating your brushes, just play around and figure out settings that work for you for whatever brush you're creating. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll check you again.